So they had been hyping GPT-5, and then the night before they dropped it, Sam Altman posted a photo of the Death Star. So like, people are like, "Are you?" And then he later backtracked because somebody from Google DeepMind quote retweeted him, and they're like, "Yeah, we're the Millennium Falcon. We're gonna blow up the Death Star." And then Sam Altman's like, "No, that's not what I meant." He's like, "I meant Google was the Death Star, and we were gonna go blow you up." And like, no one thought it. Like, you're hyping it, bro.
Welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. You got Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi. Unfortunately, Jack can't make it this week, but we got you guys. We got lots of AI stuff, Trung. It's been a big week. GPT-5 launched. We're going to break that down. Initial thoughts before we go into all of the topics. Is there like a one-liner how it went for you, like a TLDR?
No, my thing is just about the reactions. That's what we're here to talk about. So why don't we tee up what else is going on?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. All right, and then
if you couldn't tell so far, it's just me and Bilal again.
Yeah. There you go. Here we go. So we've got Nvidia, AMD. There's a Trump. It's 15%, I think, right? 15% Trump tax. This is quite a one-of-a-kind deal. It seems like from the little that I've read about it.
I believe the terms are unprecedented and irreversible.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of things that have happened this year. But there's also, sticking on the AI theme, this was a pretty cool story. A 23-year-old former OpenAI researcher now has a $1.5 billion hedge fund. Again, talking of unprecedented things. But there's a whole story around what they've been doing with that. And we'll see if we get to it. This is more of like a bullet point for the NIA crew. It's very NIA coded here. Harvard University, in one of their recent filings, it was shown that they now own $120 million worth of Bitcoin, roughly, depending on the day of the week.
No investment advice.
No investment advice through one of the ETFs.
Also, a good related story is there's a recent numbers came out about how much Harvard makes from its alternative brands, because it's obviously under attack from the White House. So this is an interesting story that we should talk about.
Okay, yeah, I want to hear more about that. All right, so let's get straight to GPT-5. I'll say from my side, again, I haven't played around with it in great detail. Obviously, just my normal daily use has obviously switched to GPT-5 by default. It looked like from the timeline, it was a bit of a flop reaction, right? Like it felt like it missed expectations in terms of people are looking for this big shift. Obviously, the search for AGI is what everyone's been talking about for a while. What was it from your timeline? You've been deep into this a little bit more. Obviously, you've got your Barely AI business too, so you're much closer than I am.
Absolutely. Thanks for teeing me up. No, but
NIA code, discount code for the
I think you actually kind of hit on it. It's like there was a little bit of if you looked at X and Reddit reactions, again, this is not necessarily representative, right? The 700 million OpenAI users, but we'll say this is they've been hyping this for over a year, right? Like the naming conventions that they've had, which has been a running joke, like, O3, the reasoning model, a 4.0, a 4.5, O3 Lite, O3 Mini. Like the running joke has been, you have this a drop-down menu of what model to choose. One's for reasoning, one's for basic. Nobody has any idea what's going on, right? And the reason was that GPT-5 wasn't up internally at OpenAI to what they thought would be worthy of GPT-5.
Like the actual upgrade to it's not like 4.2 or something. It's like 5.
Like 2.5 to 3. That's when ChatGPT came out. That was huge. And even like up to 4, like these, and O3 came out. Like these were like big
These
jumps.
are big shifts.
Yeah, there's big shifts. And like, dude, it's like what's the term, Bilal, when people get used to something because it was a hedonic treadmill, right? It's like things are getting so good that people now are just like, it's like when you see the iPhone, you're like, whatever, like this isn't impressive anymore. You give me a fourth camera, who cares? But like if you show that somebody in 2001, they fucking shit their pants, right?
Yeah, completely. So, like, no, but it's like to keep jumping that much is significant. Right?
Exactly. So they had been hyping GPT-5, and then the night before they dropped it, Sam Altman posted a photo of the Death Star. So like people are like, are you? And then he later backtracked because somebody from Google DeepMind quote retweeted him, and they're like, yeah, we're the Millennium Falcon. We're going to blow up the Death Star. And then Sam Altman's like, no, that's not what I meant. He's like, I meant Google was the Death Star, and we were gonna go blow you up, and like no one thought it. Like you were hyping it, bro. And then they did this hour-long presentation, and basically the big announcement were this: they had hit new benchmarks, but now these kind of AI benchmarks, people saying they're getting gamed a lot, and like that people are just aiming to beat the benchmarks, even whether or not it's actually accomplishing anything. So there's that element. The other element was that they got rid of all these models. They were just going to unify everything in GPT-5, right? Well, you've been using it now, right? It's GPT-5.
Yeah.
And the idea was that it's going to smart route you. It was going to route you to the reasoning model if it's a difficult question.
Yeah, I like the choice. But that's the thing. It's like you get used to something, and I do get that thing always happens when you launch new stuff. People always want the old thing that they've grown to love.
Yeah.
But I guess that like if you go back a year or two, those jumps were so much better that we all were like, actually, let's switch to this new model. So it kind of goes both ways.
Well, let me give you the exact and here's the response. This was the top response on the Reddit for OpenAI, and they kind of hit the nail on the head. You had kind of alluded to it, but when they're choosing where to route you, you have to remember the reasoning model takes a lot of tokens because it's literally reasoning, right?
Oh yeah,
It's
takes
spending
longer,
time thinking, test time compute. Whereas the quicker answer is just like you're getting the quick answer, it's spending less tokens. They're trying to control costs, right? There's just no question about it. So this went viral. A friend of the pod, Didi, shared this. This was the top OpenAI R subreddit post. So why don't you read that, Bilal?
Go and read it.
So this went super viral. After a thorough evaluation of ChatGPT 5, these are my realizations. Realization number 1, Claude is pretty effing awesome. Realization number 2, I'm a lot less concerned about the singularity and artificial general intelligence, or AGI, by 2027. It just wasn't that big of a jump. Number 3, GPT-5 is about lowering costs for OpenAI, not pushing the boundaries of the frontier. And then the last point was Sam's Death Star pre-launch hype image was really about the size of his ego and had nothing to do with the capabilities of GPT-5. So that was like the
perfect
gut
summary.
reaction. Yeah, perfect summary. But there was something else that became quite a big news story shortly thereafter. And OpenAI actually had to backtrack. Do you know what OpenAI backtracked on?
No, go on. What happened?
So there was this idea. So hit the main points. They overhyped it. They're just rerouting you in GPT-5 instead that you pick to save basically on tokens, which is annoying. And then the third thing was this, though. Also, a lot of this happens in Reddit, so this is not necessarily representative of the wider community, the 700 million users, but it was enough of an uproar that OpenAI backtracked. They allowed users at the $20 a month tier, not the free tier, the $20 a month or above tier, to keep GPT-4o. And for people that aren't in the weeds of the different naming conventions, GPT-4o is one of the more used models before GPT-5. And that one was also the one that had that, we made fun of it, the syncopatic version. The one that was just, you asked it anything, is like
hyping you up.
Yeah. It was like, yo,
glazing you.
Well, how many states are in the United States? And they'd be like, oh my God, that is the greatest question ever.
Yeah.
Like your brain is just so intoxicating. Right?
No, that's wild. Yeah, you're right.
But a lot of people were using that model, and even though they like turned the dial down on the syncopatic nature, like the fawning, it was still much more conversational. So you have subreddits here of like, there are subreddits that are thus named, like AI boyfriend, AI girlfriend, AI relationships. Listen, I'm not gonna cast aspersions here. People have their own things they need to go through in their lives. 50,000 foot level, I don't think it's great that people are having AI boyfriend, girlfriends, and therapists. I think that's a net negative for society. I think that's going to be really bad for the fertility rates, which are already tanking to like new lows. But these people were posting in these subreddits. I mean, you can literally just Google AI boyfriend Reddit, like response to GPT-5, and you'll get all these responses. It is. I mean, it's a bit
basically
sad.
like people getting sad that it's no longer glazing them and they've got used to this conversational thing, right?
It's not. Yeah, it's like when that GPT episode happened and we were making fun of it. The glaze was turned to 10. Let's say they turned the glaze down to 6, right? GPT-5, the glaze is at like 0, and I mean, you're just seeing user behavior, right? People complain about the glaze, and then when it's gone, they realize, oh, we kind of wanted and needed the glaze, right?
But that's what's interesting, because in a way, it also just shows how ingrained it is in people's lives, and it's becoming the norm. And like we've talked about this with this arc with social media. Obviously, different technologies, there's good and bad. The internet as a whole is good and bad. Hopefully, mostly good, and there's lots of bad as well. But with this stuff, whenever there's a new thing, it takes a little bit of time to really suss out all the pieces of it. And similar with social media now, like you can argue that social media is a net negative in many cases, right?
Agreed.
And I wouldn't have said that maybe 5 years ago. I probably would have said it like 2 years ago. And this is coming from people like you even more than me. But a lot of what we've done has been, but I mean, like even just like creating stuff, social media has been key to that in a positive way.
Social media,
exactly.
Right?
There's obviously lots of really positive things that come from it, direct to consumer, going direct to your audience, stuff like that. But at the same time, like now we're very quickly seeing the same thing play out with AI. Like, for example, did you read the stuff on AI-induced psychosis? This is a whole different topic we didn't plan to talk about, but this is quite a lot, man. This is quite intense. Like this is, and for people who don't know, there's a thread, I have it saved somewhere, where a psychiatrist was talking about, do you know what psychosis is? It's a break from reality, right? So people often have this when they do, things go wrong with drugs, or like there's multiple reasons that can happen. Can happen pretty much to anyone. But this guy is explaining what psychosis is, but then specifically how AI is. He's treating people now. Like I think he said 25 people this year have come in, have been hospitalized with this form of psychosis. Again, that doesn't mean that AI is causing it. It just happens to be the thing that triggered something that may have happened in another
because
state
of the
for that
nature
person.
of how it's used, right? It's
Exactly.
like it's talking you down certain roads.
Exactly, and imagine like you're going in overdrive mode, and you're basically that for a lot of people they stop sleeping. Like all these different things can happen to them. But think of someone who is like being told, "Oh, you're the Messiah," right? Like that happens a lot in that sort of world. But now you've got GPT glazing you, saying, "Yeah, you are the Messiah," right? Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of wild, man. And again, this is not to necessarily
crazy.
just blame the technology. It's just
hold on, Bilal. I'll say this. I've heard these stories.
Yeah.
I think they are getting overblown, but I also grant that it's 100% happening.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about it, right? Yeah. And it's crazy, dude.
It's wild. It's wild.
So this actually brings up a really interesting point. I don't have the tweet here. I want to give credit to it, but I saw a million tweets in the past week, so sorry I couldn't. I don't know which one this was, but somebody brought up a really good point. On a competitive level, because we got to give Sam Altman some credence. I mean, you got to give a shout out to Sam Altman on this front. So before GPT-5, he released an open source model, full on basically MIT license. You can do whatever you want with it. Finally, met the moment of the promise of the name and the starting of the company. Right? They finally met the DeepSeek challenge. Open sourced a very good model that if you have a really good laptop, you can literally run it on your laptop. Like this is like, if this was a frontier model 3 months ago, it would have been. So kudos to that. The other thing I will say is, so Sam Altman put up a really long tweet when they said that they were allowing some users to go back to GPT 4.0. And basically what he was saying was the realization that what you had just said, Bilal, the tightness and the relationship that people are building with AIs is unlike anything for any other technology ever that's been released. It's like, it is another level. It is something to be worried about. And he kind of acknowledged the responsibility that they had at OpenAI, right? And 700 million users. They're basically Google sized at this point. They're Facebook sized, or they're in the ballpark of those companies now, right? There's only a handful of those companies, less than 10. So he recognized that. But here's where this tweet I mentioned made a very good point. Is basically saying, if OpenAI is recognizing that they have a responsibility to not lead people down certain paths because of how sticky these conversations are, then that's a competitive situation that they can come up against because there's going to be a race to the bottom. Someone will fill that boyfriend girlfriend void. Someone's going to do it, right? This is just we know it's going to happen. We know we know what's on the internet, people.
Yeah.
We know that thing is going to get filled. So is OpenAI ceding that ground? They're in a very tough spot now. I think with their brand and just the amount of people, they're the Google, the way Google is for search, they are for AI.
Yeah, for AI,
right?
yeah.
So like, I think no matter what, that brand is just so powerful that they'll stick around. But it's like, is it now that all-encompassing monster that will become a $10 trillion company, right? Like, we don't know anymore. They understand how, like, we know Zuck. Zuck might just go full syncopathic. He's like, screw it. Let's win the relationships, right? Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that from a competitive standpoint? Then I have one more.
It's a really good point. I do think it's interesting that we're getting to the point where the companies have got so big already, like with OpenAI specifically. They're obviously not public. And we talked probably last week about how companies going public later, where they just grow and grow as a private company to these crazy valuations. That now it's kind of like, I don't want to say diminishing returns, but in a way, it's like how much more they're going to keep going. And specifically with, even if they're going to lead the charge in many ways, they've got that brand that has become a verb, right, to do that, to ChatGPT something. It's not, I wouldn't compare it directly with, say, Google in 2006 or whenever they were really about to blow up to the next level, because Google owns search specifically, which they were by far and away the number one, and it was quite hard to then compete with them. And they had like 90% of the market share. In this case, yeah, of course, OpenAI do. I don't know the actual market share. Is it 80%, 70%? I don't know the number. It's
of the chat market, it's got to be. It's
probably up
like
there.
100 million users, right? It's like, are we counting Meta AI? Like you accidentally press like the search bar?
Yeah, that's a good point. Exactly. Right? But that's the thing. I do think it's still early enough-ish that there is a small window now where Gemini could take a good chunk, Meta could take a good chunk, and then you're actually, it's not like you're just competing on search, right? Like there's potential for 2-3 big players to have, a significant like share of the market. So, and then even, I mean, again, we talk about poly market all the time, and we talked about earlier the the benchmarks that are going for AI. Like right now, when you look at the poly market for best AI model, which obviously is a very subjective, that's why I'm doing air quotes, the way they measure that you can dispute. But right now, Google, even in the month of August, is the favorite to have the best AI model this month. By the end of the year, they're 50% favorites to be.
Which basically means
XAI is number 2,
for end of the year.
For end of the year.
Okay.
Exactly. So again, all of this is to say that it's not a clear thing that they are just genuinely the best for every single category. Like Claude is very, very good for certain things. Gemini is actually really, really good for certain things. And it's not a given to me still in 2025 that it's just a runaway success. I do think there's a lot of risk there for them. And honestly, on the perception side too, like I'm already seeing like these conversations happening where there's a little bit of this anti-tech sentiment across the world in like certain demographics. Even I saw, did you see this morning, I think, or yesterday, Ralph Lauren posted on Instagram an AI ad, like this is a big,
Ralph
story.
Lauren?
Yeah, like the fashion brand.
And are they getting dragged for it?
And what was interesting, there's a lot of people being like, this is an amazing ad. And then one of the top comments is this an AI generated ad, or did you pay real artists and real creative animators?
Right.
And then the comments below that are like, well, no, they are a good moral company. They definitely paid the artists. But the answer is no, they actually, they
so
were using an AI.
Great. Of course they did. Actually.
Yeah, and obviously, that's not my opinion. Obviously, I don't think it's immoral to use AI. But it's just an interesting thing that I think is very quickly going to play out, where brands are going to use AI, and then they may just get in the mud for
they're
doing
gonna
it.
get dragged for it.
In the same way Hollywood would have the same because
Yep.
you know, with the strikes that happen and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting time with that. I do think OpenAI has a lot of risk politically as well. Like all the things that are playing out right now, you're seeing Elon Musk versus Sam Altman play out live on Twitter. Governmental things that can come down the line. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure how it will end up here, but they need to keep like really beating expectations, and this one didn't do that, right? So that's the first one. If they do this the next time they launch something, slowly you're going to say, wait a minute, things change, sentiment changes very quickly. So that's something I would look out for next time.
No, that's you brought up, you kind of nailed the point, which I do. I'll address the first point you said, which is very salient, is you don't think it's a winner take all, and I agree. It's like because each thing, goes to the competitive point, is like Claude is really good for coding. GPT-4o is really good for glazing your ass. It's like, and then XAI is great for real time. It's like I use Grok when I'm on my phone, right? Oh, I'm like obviously glued to X.
Oh yeah, because it's pulling from the Twitter. From
and
X.
Also, some of it gets pretty annoying when it's like every other comment is Grok, is this true?
That's funny. Yeah, it really replaced Perplexity very quickly, because I think people used to tag Perplexity.
It's so embedded, right? So what I will say is this:
it's very helpful, though. Honestly, real quick,
it is actually
when it does like a fact check or whatever.
Is it 100% correct? Of course not. But dude, they source it pretty well now. Like the linking. They source it very well. But the other thing I'd say is, here's another thing that I'll shout out to. This one I do have the name, and I'll give proper credit here. So shout out to Ethan Ding. Check out his Substack. Very good Substack. He writes good articles looking at the competitive AI field. He made a very smart insight on GPT-5 drop that we haven't even mentioned yet. So in the past year, Anthropic's revenue has gone up 4 times. We talked about this briefly. I think they're about $6 billion a year run rate now. In that same time frame, OpenAI went up 2 times. Lower growth rate, but it's at 12 billion, so much higher. But at this current trend, Anthropic would catch OpenAI, and they just raised at 150 billion valuation, which is half of what OpenAI is. Although OpenAI is now about to raise at a 500 billion valuation, which is just absolutely insane when you think about it, right?
Would that be the most apart from SpaceX? Well, how large is SpaceX?
Yeah, I mean SpaceX will end up being 500 billion. It's SpaceX, ByteDance, and OpenAI. It's kind of a 3-way battle between those 3.
And then what's Stripe, like 100?
Stripe is at 100. Okay. 50 to 100.
I was just trying to think of all the private. They're the three biggest private companies.
Yeah. And those are
like Saudi Aramco. I don't know if you count.
Yeah, it's not counting Aramco, and what else is there? I mean, if you count like Cargill and like the Koch brothers, right? Is like a lot of these commodities, like industrial players. But so Anthropic is growing so fast. Their business is the API business. So we've talked about this again. Anthropic gave up on chat. They still have Claude, but they kind of gave up on the chat market. They went after the API market. So they went from about 25% of AI API revenue to 60 to 70%. This is Menlo Ventures did an analysis recently, so the VC firm. But here's the key. They own about 2/3 of the AI coding market. And the AI coding market is basically the biggest AI
That's amazing,
use case, right? It's massive. So all these Cursor.
What's it? Claude Code is what people are using.
So Claude Code is their version
of like Cursor or whatever
of Cursor, but Cursor even has a nicer UX. So like Replit is using Anthropic.
Yeah, isn't Cursor using Claude?
Cursor is paying Anthropic about 800 mil a year.
Wow.
But they're building a nicer UX on top of the underlying model, right? Yeah. But Claude Code released Claude Code, and Anthropic's like, wait, we might as well just try to capture this market, right? But the interesting thing about Cursor was when GPT-5 dropped. Here's a competitive landscape that was pointed out by Ethan Ding. GPT-5 tokens on coding are about 1/10 of the cost of Anthropic's. And apparently on the software engineering benchmark, it's at the same level. So Ethan's point is that what OpenAI did and people are criticizing it at the chat interface level, is that they're actually on a competitive level trying to take out Anthropic. They're trying to drive down costs on Anthropic because ChatGPT can make all its money ultimately from ads. It is going to be the new Google, right? That's the play it's trying to make. They haven't done ads yet, but they hired Fiji. Well, I forgot her name, last name, but if you could pull up the former CEO of Instacart, she used to run Facebook Blue. She ran the entire company and built the ad infrastructure for Facebook Blue, which is the main Facebook interface. So she's the head of applications.
Fiji Simo?
Yeah, Fiji Simo. Apologies for missing the last name, but yeah, she built the ads for the main Facebook social interface before Instagram. So they're going to build ads into OpenAI, and Ethan's point is they're going to drive Anthropic's revenue to basically zero if they can, or force Anthropic out of this massively, because Anthropic it left the chat game. So cheap OpenAI is trying to hurt its moneymaker, which is ruthless. And that's the other point of this is like GPT-5 wasn't really about the interface is the point he's trying to make. And I think from a competitive landscape, he's correct because Anthropic is coming at them real hard. And apparently the coding, the margins that Anthropic has on coding is enough that their CEO Dario said that they're almost at profit. And we know how expensive running these GPUs are, right? So a huge competitive move. It'll hurt them on fundraising. It'll hurt Anthropic on getting more talent if they can't keep keeping their valuation high. So pretty savage move that
there's a lot
OpenAI,
of big moves being made.
Yeah. So I think that is the best thing to consider.
So Trung, can you still, because I haven't used it much today or yesterday, but are the reasoning models still, you can select those in GPT? I can pull it out.
I'm
a paid.
Yeah, you can still do 4.0. You can still pick 4.0.
Yeah, I've got 4.0, but no, what about, it's changed to GPT-5 thinking, it says.
Yeah, so there you go.
So it doesn't give me the chance to do 0.3.
No, so GPT-5 has itself multiple models. There's like Nano, Thinking, and Mini, I believe.
But I can't select it myself.
Well, you're supposed to be able to still select 4.0 if you are on the right plan.
Maybe it's on the bottom because I was doing the drop down
here's
on
an
top.
easy solution is they got to give more transparency on the routing because right now we talk about nobody's trusting the routing, right? It's like, are you just routing us to the cheapest option is basically the instinct. And the routing on ChatGPT 5 was also broken because even Sam Altman had to come on and be like, oh, sorry, our routing is kind of broken right now. So, yeah, a lot of interesting. So here's to summarize. GPT-5 is overhyped, but the actual model itself has improved. It just didn't improve at the hype level. People are upset that they're getting force routed, and they think it's because GPT-5 is trying to save money, which obviously they are. They're trying to be more transparent about that. It looks like they are responding to the reaction. And then the big one is the competition with Anthropic to try to take out Anthropic's. Like basically, the API market has become massive, and it's not just like coders that you think about. It's like we're talking about like the largest banks on Wall Street are using Anthropic to code now, right? It's like they're literally becoming the AWS for AI code, and that's a massive market. So OpenAI is going to try to drive that down to zero, but here's the other side of it. Anthropic actually is probably doing the most cutting edge stuff. So if even GPT-5 is on par now, that probably won't be the case shortly because Opus 4.1 just came out, which is the new Anthropic model. And listen, you can try all this on barely.ai, people. You don't have to have 30 subscriptions, okay?
There we go.
And
Perfect.
we don't log. And here's the key. We ain't logging those keystrokes, people. But anyways, enough shilling.
That's a good That's a great angle.
Well, we did change the landing page to privacy first because that actually is kind of where.
No, I think that's smart. I think that's something that more and more people are going to worry about, including myself. So, very cool. All right. Talking of which, let's get on to Nvidia, AMD. There's a 15% Trump tax. You talked about it earlier as unprecedented. Honestly, I read the summary of this, but yeah, I don't fully understand what's going on because I guess it's not something that's
Let me just go
happened
top
before.
level
Yeah,
and
let's
just
go
say
top
this might
level.
not even be allowed in the Constitution. You're not supposed to have an export tax. Like,
So
because
explain what it is. So how does it work? So who's and why is it happening? Because it's related to China, right?
yeah, so this is related to China, and well, here's what happened, right? We've talked about over the past year. There's been a lot of chip bans, right? The on the
Chip
competitive
ban, yeah.
landscape, the United States, it started under Biden, was actually started under Trump with semiconductor making equipment in his first term. Then Biden really, Biden's administration really turned the dial to restrict the highest end Nvidia chips and AMD's best AI chips from going to China. And we know this
What's
is
their
the talking
logic,
point.
Trang? I know, but it's because of
Yeah, the logic is they want to slow down China's AI development. The U.S. government has determined, and some people agree with this. I think a lot of people agree with this. Some people don't. AI is a dual use technology. What does dual use mean? It means it can be used for civilian use and for military use. Like a jet
it's
engine.
national security, really,
Yeah, national
right?
security. Like a jet engine is dual use, right? So like you can use it for commercial jetliners and for military purposes. So actually, a lot of jetliner equipment from the U.S. has been restricted to China. So that's just another example. AI chips are dual use, right? That is the logic behind this national security. You don't want to have a pure competitor state in AI in China. And what we found out in the past 6 months is China also has leverage. They have rare earth monopoly, right? So this has been the big thing. So China has been preparing basically since the first Trump term to be ready for if Trump ever came back and went full trade war. The rare earth thing on China's side. So the term rare earth is a misnomer. Rare earths actually aren't rare, right?
Yeah.
They're found in a lot of America has huge deposits.
It's more the
Australia's got
processing or
deposits.
something, right?
Yeah, the processing is what makes it why China has a monopoly. It's an extremely, extremely dirty process to extract these quote unquote rare earths. And China had just thrown it out the window. Like they did at the top CCP levels. They're like, we're going to monopolize this, and America has stepped up, and actually the Defense Department invested in a public American company to guarantee buying of processing at a certain price. They did not want rare earths to be driven down by China, like China's done with solar panels, solar parts. That industry's just been driven down to the bone where you can't compete competitively. So the Defense Department in America is guaranteeing a floor price for rare earths for an American maker. It's still going to take 2 to 3 years though. That's the setup. So if anybody's been following the news of Nvidia's argument and Jensen Huang's argument, the CEO of Nvidia, and of course he's going to say this, right? He's fully incentivized to say this. But he's like, we should be able to sell chips to China.
Yeah.
And his logic is you don't want China completely replacing the North American Western semiconductor stack. And frankly, that is the die's been cast. It's happening. Huawei is building from soups to nuts an entire semiconductor thing. It will take a long time. This will not happen overnight. Because right now,
essentially a competitor to Nvidia's chips, you're saying.
Nvidia, ASML.
With ASML
yeah.
too. So
No, but
could
it's
you
like,
explain that,
because they
Trump?
don't-
Because ASML is a Dutch company, right?
ASML is a Dutch
That is
company
part of
that builds
process.
the machines that build semiconductors. These are $200 million machines.
I was going to say incredibly expensive.
It's insane. And the way to think about
Specialized
ASML
work.
though is they are okay. So Boeing obviously has had a pretty shoddy reputation in the past decade on the engineering front. But what is Boeing ultimately? Boeing is a combiner of thousands of parts. There's thousands and thousands of parts that go in an airplane. And these parts come from all over the world, right? ASML does the same function for these machines that make semiconductors. And they're more expensive than Boeing planes. Some of them are. I think the latest line of DEUV, that's the latest line of semiconductor making equipment is about 350 to 400 million for one machine, right? And these things take years to build. And just give you an example.
Just to clarify really quickly, you're saying that Huawei is
is going to
doing
try
both.
to build these
so
machines.
it's the equivalent of like Nvidia also doing ASML's part.
Well, it's
and
not just
combining
Huawei.
it as one big
SMIC
company.
is the big Chinese semiconductor. It's like SMIC is China's version of TSMC. So SMIC would be working with Huawei to build this, and then DeepSeek would be working with Huawei to, to make their models work on Huawei's chips. Like China has a top-down order to build their entire semiconductor. And people remember, semiconductors are the most impressive machineries that humankind has ever invented, right? It's like one of these ASML machines. I think that the term was something of this is how accurate it is. You can shoot a laser, right, and hit something the size of a golf ball on the moon with perfect precision. That is like the difficulty that is being tasked with ASML machines. And back to the Boeing example, ASML combines parts from thousands of suppliers, right? They take glasses from the top glass manufacturer, precision glass manufacturer in the world, is in Germany. I mean, the name is Zeiss. If you bought glass frames, you probably bought Zeiss glass frames, right? And then they're buying like the best like laser equipment and the best camera photo equipment, because you need to, that's how you imprint on these semiconductors, from Japan, right? Like Nikon supplies that. Basically, China's trying to rebuild all this, right?
And this is, I mean, what we know, they can build things faster than most people, but what's the estimate, do you know, of how long this could take?
I mean,
10, 15 years.
It'll take 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But they're going to do it. I'll give you an example. They've been trying to build a Boeing or Airbus competitor for decades, probably 2 decades at this point. It's called Comac, is their domestic one. It's extremely difficult to build commercial airliners. That's why there's basically 4 in the entire world. It's really a duopoly. It's Boeing, Airbus, but then you have Embraer in Brazil, and then Canada, actually, because of how close it is to the United States and a big supplier to Boeing, also has national efforts, but they build smaller planes. This is embarrassing. I forgot the name of the Canadian one.
That's all right.
Could you actually? Yeah, don't even have to look it up.
No,
but
that's
it's embarrassing.
fine. It's all good. But so let's just to bring it back.
I just gave the 50,000 foot level.
Yeah. Okay.
Back to the chip.
Yeah.
So Nvidia was asked to basically give a dumbed down version of its H100 chip. So they made something called the H20 chip. Okay.
And this is just to go back. This is the chip that was going to be allowed to be. They can sell this to China.
They were told for that
apparently DeepSeek used, right, when they made their cheaper model, it's 6 months ago, whatever it was.
You can make a chip that has less capability, and then you can send that to China. So maybe it has less capability on the bandwidth front, how much data it can take in, or it's like less energy efficient.
It's not best of the best. That's the main thing.
It's not top tier. But here's the kicker. As we discovered DeepSeek was able to do a frontier model at a much lower cost level than Anthropic or OpenAI. And a big reason was they had to, right? Constraints, creativity, that whole thing. But here's the thing about China that we talked about. It was on the AMA episode. China is producing more gigawattage, cheap energy than the rest of the world combined right now, right? And they also do 60 to 70% of all the world's coal emissions. Like they're doing everything on the energy front. So even though the H20 chips are, as you said, and as we've discovered, they're a little bit dumbed down. They're not H100s, not top of the line. They won't be the Blackwell, which is the next generation. China has so much energy that what is ultimately AI? It's the chips, it's the algos, and it's energy. You could brute force some things. So you can actually, with cheaper energy costs,
more energy,
get same performance because that's what it is, right? It's compute per energy input. It's kind of like is what people are looking at right now.
So in that equation, you just add more energy input instead of the compute part.
Stupid amounts of energy.
Yeah.
You can so that's part of it. But Jensen's argument, it's not wrong either. Like this is a $50 billion a year market, and Jensen's like, listen, if you push us out of the China market, they're gonna just go fully into their stack, and the boat sailed. They're doing it. So I think at this point, Jensen's trying to save 10 years of revenue, which is not inconsequential. That's still hundreds of billions of dollars, and it may still lock in some of the Chinese market into the Nvidia chips. But the top-down directive from the CCP right now is do not, like, you are building your own stack. You can use H20s to get you there, but we expect in 10 years that you're off the Western stack, right? So
It's
it's
wild.
crazy.
This is like
It's crazy.
books are going to be written about. I mean, they already have been written about.
Well,
Like
a really
chip
good
war
book
and
is by Chip War. So I'm actually halfway through Chip War right now, and a big
yeah,
point
I've
they
just
made
added
there.
it to my Kindle. I haven't read it either.
Yeah, it's like here's one big takeaway. And actually, Jensen called out Chip War. And again, he called it out because the big lesson from the Cold War was this. Actually, the Soviet Union kept on stealing America's chip making technology. But the problem is it took them so long to build it that once they were ready, they're always 3 or 4 years behind, right? But China is just on a different scale. Like China versus Soviet Russia, these are different animals. Like China is trading with 80, was the top trade partner for 89% of the world, right? The Soviet Union was never that. China is a third of the world's manufacturing right now. The Soviet Union was never that. So like China is a different beast. China in 2025 is a different competitive beast. So now we'll get to the chip ban and why it's so interesting. So Trump is allowing these dumbed down chips from Nvidia and AMD to go to China. But he's allowing it as long as they pay, like Bilal said, a 15% export fee. I mean, people are just calling this a straight up bribe, right? This is unheard of. Even within the Constitution, this might not even be allowed. Like,
there's a possibility it could get blocked or what?
There's a possibility that the courts might not even allow it. Because the thing about a point in the Constitution is you're trying to limit, the original Constitution was trying to limit how much power the federal government could have. But if you could determine export fees, same with, and Congress is supposed to have power over tariffs too, right? But the executive branch is doing it right now under the aegis of national security. And you're trying to limit how much power can get sucked into one branch. And the judicial branch, the legislative branch, Congress, and the executive branch, president, are supposed to be equal powers. But we've discussed this ever since basically, it started with Woodrow Wilson and World War I and the introduction of the income tax in the 1913 was income tax. But the state has just gotten bigger and bigger. 2 world wars made the state extremely big, right? FDR really made the state big. But then ever since then, post-World War II, the state just got larger and larger. And it's gone in the power of the executive branch. Because now Congress is so hard to make laws. But the point, because I'm just trying to answer Bilal's question here of, will this get blocked? Potentially. But now people are like, okay, well, if there's 2 outcomes here of what this kind of means long term. And one has already kind of been happening. One is, okay, well, does it mean that every company has to just negotiate with Trump at this point? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, does every company have to just basically go to the White House and the Oval Office and ask Trump for permission to do something and then kick him 10%? Right?
But Trump, can I ask, logistically, this means, so they're going to be allowed to, if it stays, to sell any chip? What is there still restrictions?
Right now, it's apparently the H20, which is the dumbed down chip. But Trump even mentioned in the presser, we might let Nvidia do the Blackwell, which is the next level.
Which is big
the,
upgrade.
the next generation. So
and
people are actually
he's saying
concerned
if
now.
you pay 15%,
he's like, we will
amount.
work out a number. Yeah. So like, and the people are just like the China hawks, like the ones that really want a trade war with China, are like, hold on a second here. So what would stop America from selling China the F-35, which is the top of the line fighter jet?
Yeah, I guess the point is like if
is
one
it national security? Yeah,
national security. Is it national security? Then there's no price on that.
Yeah,
obviously.
There's no price that you can. Well, the question becomes like, are you actually backing out a number where you are taking into consideration national security? So if you're selling H20 chips and then you do some formula like, okay, that means China will catch up to us in 3 years instead of 2 because it'll be on this older chip, is that worth X amount of money, right? It is. There is a calculation you can make for national security front. I just don't think that thing's being made. 15% just sounds like Trump was like, yeah, I wanted 20, and they said 15, so we agreed. It's like it's just on the seat of the pants.
Like a car negotiation.
Yeah, you know? It's a used car negotiation right now. And here's the other element of it, which is worth talking about. This is really going to hurt small companies. Because you just don't have the resources to go to the White House and negotiate with Trump.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, got you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where we're at with this. And then the last point I'll make is this is, they're embracing a very China model. So the other thing that happened in the last 3 months is U.S. steel was sold to a Japanese steel producer. This was blocked under the Biden administration. The U.S. steel probably would have gone out of business, but a Japanese steel producer wanted to invest in it and kind of save the jobs in America, but it was blocked on national security grounds. Trump allowed it to happen with what is basically a Chinese CCP move, a golden share in the company. A golden share effectively is one share where you get to a veto decision on the board, right? So this is a very CCP-led situation. This is what the CCP has done. They have a golden share in ByteDance. They have a golden share in Tencent. They have a golden share in all the major players. So
BYD as well.
yeah, almost certainly. So the U.S. brought that, and yeah, that's the third thing is like taking on China, but doing much more Chinese CCP coded maneuvers around the state, around the corporate world. So those are the kind of the impacts. Very top level. I mean, major thing.
No, it's major. I'm curious to get your opinion. This is just your opinion. Do you think this is a positive or negative thing for US in the medium to long term? Them being allowed to do this?
I don't think. I think that this is distorting the markets quite a bit. I think America needed an industrial policy because we saw the reverse of what was happening. All the jobs just got shipped off to China. And if you go full corporate, you have what happened over the past 30 years, where there's no consideration for national security in the sense of manufacturing. America went from 35% of global manufacturing to 15% since 1980. And then the reverse over that period is China's now a third. You know, it's not in the corporate's interest to think about the national security hot war aspect of it. It is in American government's interest to do that. So I think some level of industrial policy is important and should be done. It just has to be done smartly. And I think this one just comes off way too much as a kickback or / bribe than actual like a well thought out industrial policy. We're being honest, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, also, did you end up listening to? I sent you the Balaji pod on Pete McCormick.
Oh yeah,
did you end up
amazing.
To
Yeah,
that? It was a good pod if people want to check it out. Yeah, I think it was this year, but it wasn't like last week. It was probably a few months ago. But you know, Balaji being very Balaji brain, there's lots of stuff being discussed. But curious to get your take on that as it relates to this. He's kind of alluding to basically the US. The way he's speaking about the US in that podcast is like it's already the end of the empire. That was my feeling. I don't know if you heard that too.
Yeah, I mean he's written widely on
I mean he's written Network Stake about the future.
He starts the whole thing with this chart he always mentions, right? It's if you look through the entire history of global economics, it's called 3,000-4,000 years. The center of it. Yeah, the center of it has always been closer to China and India, right? Populations up to the 1800s, is either China or India was the largest economy in the world. But this is before the Industrial Revolution, so it doesn't necessarily mean the standard of living was high. But all that's happening is shifting back, right? And this is like we kind of spoke about this last week, my trip to Southeast Asia and Singapore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Singapore is, right? Specifically.
It's like he's like you're looking at America now. And it's moving to the internet. He's like the most talented people in America moving online is what he's basically saying. The same way that the most talented
land versus
in
cloud
England,
is his frame, right?
Yeah, land versus cloud. The most talented people in England in the 1700s, or the most entrepreneurial, went to America. That's where the real estate is now, right? The quote unquote real estate. So I think this all plays into it, man. It's like the next 30, 40 years are going to be insanely interesting and insane.
Yeah. So it just kind of makes you think more about, I think we often talk about Europe versus the US, having, me and Jack are European but live here, and you're Canadian, so you get your own point of view on it. And we often will think like, oh, Europe, like they're not creating as many companies as we have here. Obviously, when you look at the world's biggest companies, like OpenAI is coming out of here, big tech, a lot of the big companies are still coming out of here, SpaceX for space exploration, etc. But so I still think very US centrically, right, on that, but that isn't necessarily looking at the future. And like a lot of stuff is really, there is a lot of exciting stuff coming out of Asia as well. But it's interesting to see his frame is almost like the US empire is already kind of ending or ended, and very much looking at Asia as this beacon of growth and hope in a way in his own version of it. Well, maybe not Asia, but the internet version of it is his whole thing of network state. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. I don't fully agree with everything he's saying on that, but it's always kind of interesting hearing his point of view and to see how things are kind of evolving. Would definitely recommend that podcast was very good. So anything else on that, Trung, before we move on to this researcher who's now got a $1.5 billion hedge fund, 23-year-old.
What else did we have on the docket, Ashley?
It was that and the Harvard. Maybe
let's do the Harvard
they're
one.
Kind of related. They're kind of related.
We've hit a lot of AI. Let's just skip
that's
to the
fine.
Harvard.
Yeah. So Harvard, let me pull this up. This was your tweet from, I think, last week, August 8th. So Harvard Management Company reported a new position of almost 2 million shares of IBIT, which is the Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah.
At June 30th, it was worth around $117 million, slightly above his gold ETF holding at the time of $100 million.
Dude, how crazy is that, man?
That is wild, right? And so just for people who are someone's listening to this asking, what's Harvard Management Company if people don't know what that is?
They run the
hedge fund or the
it's the hedge
part,
fund,
right?
And they manage the money for ultimately, I think it's like $50-60 billion right now, but that's the endowment, right? They're growing the endowment, and the idea within endowment is that it helps fund the university, and I think Harvard University's annual operating budget is $6 billion a year. And this relates to something that we're talking about. So I'll ask you this first of all.
Trung, real quick, I'm pulling up on the screen for people who are listening, just the different companies and investments they have. And I'm just seeing it. Is there a dollar amount estimate somewhere here? Yeah, to the nearest here. So their investment in Bitcoin ETF is larger than Alphabet. I mean, all these other companies.
Well, here, this is fun. They got a big booking position. The one that we talked about.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that recently.
Website. Yeah, crazy, right?
Even Nvidia actually is only 104. Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, this is just wanted to give the specifics around that.
Well, so he'll ask you this, Bilal. What is your, just top level reaction to the idea that the Harvard endowment, which is like top of the top.
Yeah,
endowment,
top of the top. They have access to every deal in the world.
Than gold. Yeah. What do you think about that? How crazy is that?
It's pretty wild, yeah. I mean, if you go back, even 3 years, I don't think it would have been even on the docket for someone like them, a traditional institution. And I guess it's kind of consistent with what we've been talking about for some time. I think the ETFs are so overlooked from a lot of people. I know we've talked about it when it came out, why it's a big deal. And even honestly, as a personal investor, I've obviously bought Bitcoin as spot Bitcoin before, but there is an element of the ETF is really convenient for a lot of people. And for a lot of people doing self-custody and all that sort of stuff, or the risk of holding stuff on a Coinbase or an exchange is different to, I'm just going to buy an ETF in my retirement account. Now is another thing, right? You can do that. So it's just, it's pretty amazing that it's just become this thing that
it's so institutionalized.
People are saying, well, you buy some gold, you buy some Bitcoin. And in this case, they literally have as much.
Well, dude, think about this. We've been doing this for a bit about 4 years now.
I think.
Dude, can you imagine? No,
if you told
4
us
years
then,
ago, it would have been, dude, it would have been unthinkable.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been in the frame, yeah.
I'll add a 50,000 foot thing about, a downside risk of this. And then we'll talk about Harvard's executive ed program, which is a funny bit. We'll finish with that. So Harvard getting Bitcoin in its endowment, insane. What happened a couple weeks ago, Bilal? The executive order from the president, Trump, basically said the 401k now
you can invest in crypto and alternative assets, yeah. So
Bitcoin now is so entwined into mainstream finance that, remember how volatile this is as an asset class. So you could have a situation where, people keep talking about quantum, will quantum crack Bitcoin? Will it get hacked? It's like Bitcoin has had the largest bounty to get hacked in the history of mankind at this point. What is it? 1.5 trillion, $2 trillion asset class.
Yeah.
It has the largest bounty to get hacked. It's been resilient. But if it were to, could get ugly because of how tied it is now into the endowments and 401ks.
Oh, that's a good point.
Will be
yeah,
right. And IBIT, the ETF. I can't remember what the number was. It's almost 100 billion now, something crazy. And then stablecoin adoption, right, is like it's getting intertwined.
178 billion IBIT is.
Yeah. Oh, that is insane. So
I think it's the most successful ETF of all time, or it was.
At speed, yeah. At speed, it is. So yeah, those are the kind of the TLDRs.
And I guess, I mean, Trung, the other point is because we've talked about corporate treasuries adding Bitcoin to a treasury, right? And let's quickly just explain because a lot of people don't know how this works. Most companies have a bunch of money sitting on their balance sheet, and they have a CFO and a team whose job it is to manage that and there's a risk reward of it just not sitting in zero, in cash, because they're going to lose money to inflation. And a lot of the time they put it in treasuries or something fairly safe. But with Harvard, these guys, basically the joke is that they make most of their money from investing, right? Isn't that the kind of meme of it all?
Well, the joke
They're
is
essentially
like
a hedge fund.
Well, it's like we talked about last week, like and how credit card companies are just points companies. That whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, when you actually break down where their money is made, it's kind of true. It's like when you look at Starbucks, there's the example of the what's it called in their app, the cash that's sitting in their gift cards and all that sort of stuff. Now the other thing is what it signals to other major educational players or whatever, or institutional buyers of this. And so I just think it's very quickly become this thing that it doesn't sound that risky anymore, which obviously there's a huge amount of risk in this asset class.
Well, it makes it risky that if it doesn't sound risky, right? Because people will not be taking the same precautions with it. In the certain individuals may not be taking the right precautions.
Exactly.
Namely, some on this call right now.
There you go. But anyway, I guess, is there anything else on the Harvard thing? Because it is it's quite. I feel like it's worth us talking about because it's like a moment in time that to mark on NIA is important.
I will. Well, here I'll add this on the Harvard thing. Let's finish with Harvard exec education because this is an interesting topic. Yeah. So adding Bitcoin to the endowment to fund the operations of Harvard, the budget's about $6 billion a year. So their job, presumably Bitcoin's job, is to help fund that, right? So what's happened with the Trump administration versus Harvard, which some people have seen, is they're going to take away federal funding if they don't change kind of some woke policies or, like there's been a lot admissions policies, but that's hurt the budget for Harvard because Harvard gets about 10% of the operating budget from the federal government. So one thing that's really helped to fill the void is this Harvard Extension School certificate stuff. I mean, Bilal, the jokes about Harvard Extension School, right? Is like people on LinkedIn. How many people on LinkedIn have you seen that have some type of Harvard Extension School or like went to Harvard, and then you dig into their LinkedIn and it's like they took a 3-day accounting course at Harvard Business School. It turns out that this like certificating and extension school business is just an absolute juggernaut. It made $600 million last year. And almost half of that came from Harvard Business School. So when you see people on LinkedIn claiming to have gone to Harvard and then you dig into their education, and it turns out that when they went to Harvard, it was like, again, this weekend course on accounting or weekend course on financial modeling. This is huge business for Harvard and extremely important now with the federal government beef that they have on the funding. And yeah, I think it's just a hilarious story. So the business, HBS, has 42,000 exec education students. I mean, how many times have you seen that, Bilal?
Yeah, you see it all the time. And I think it's what we talk about all the time, like what's the purpose of paying for an education? One big part is credentialing. And so you're signaling, exactly, yeah, from the credential. So, and I will say, like, even when in my old jobs, like people would do, I think Wharton did a thing with Google where they had like a 6-week thing, and it was actually kind of useful, I'm sure, but it was, people got to add that to their profile, and that is a big part of Yeah, part of the business, it seems. Well, you said 600 million, was it? How big is that compared to their main bit? I mean, that must be still fairly small portion, I'm assuming.
10% of the
Percentage-wise.
operating.
Oh, it's 10%. Okay. Damn.
Yeah, and half of
that's
that 600
significant.
million is Harvard.
Wow.
I'm at Harvard Business School.
Okay. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, they got to do it, man. I guess they're going to have their online versions. They're going to have these weekend courses and stuff. That's how they got to make their monies, man. So if they're not making enough from
How many
Ibit,
times, though, Bilal, you used to hire people? How many times have you actually seen Harvard in the education section and then you're like, oh, interesting. And then you dig in. And
yeah,
it's the
you're like
exact
spreadsheet
code.
modeling. Okay, I see that. Respect. Okay, got to do it.
Oh, man. But
You gotta
no,
do
that's a
it.
good
All
one.
right, man. That was a great chat. Thanks for being there, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Look, really edge of the internet, AI heavy stuff today. It was very good. And we got some more coming for you guys next week. All right, Trung, anything else before we wrap it up?
Thank you, sir. That was amazing. We'll be back next week. Enjoy your
chat.
week, y'all.
All right,
Peace.
everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.